Hello, Internet. Today I have a simple tutorial for you about how to automate using Mechanism, Nuclear Craft, and a little bit of vanilla machines using Applied Energistics. As you can see behind me, I have an example network set up for you, and we're going to go over exactly what each thing does and how to work it and how to set it up. So what I want to start with is using the two input mechanism machines. I've got a basic infusing factory here. It doesn't matter whether you're using one of the factory styles or the basic ones. They're all the same. But in order for the infusing factory to work, you need to input an extra item, is what Mechanism calls it, as well as your standard input. So for this one, it's going to be redstone, diamond dust, or crushed obsidian. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that your sides, see how your sides are configured. You can use the default configuration, or you can customize the configuration for something that works better for you. Whatever it is that allows you to get your cables, to have your cables wired in a way that isn't going to be cluttered and is going to let you get everything in and out in a nice, easy fashion. If you want to do it the way that I have it here, I have the right side set to output, the left side set to extra, the back set to input, and the bottom is energy. The energy isn't as important as the other three, but that is how I tend to configure it. You also don't need auto eject. It doesn't matter whether it's on or off, because the import bus that we'll be using is going to automatically pull the items out regardless. So that can be on or off, but if you want to toggle it, or if you're not using Applied Energistics, you can automate this just using vanilla hoppers and chests in a very similar way to how I'm going to show you how to set it up. But you would want to leave auto eject on if you're using just a vanilla chest right there. Also, some of the other item moving conduits that exist out there in the world some of them will require you to have ejections turned on, some of them will require you to have it turned off. If you're having problems, just come in here and toggle that and see if that helps. Anyway, to set things up, you're going to have your cable coming in from your main ME system. And so that's what this red cable is here. And have your ME system is going to be configured however it is that you want to have it configured. And that'll come into the block style ME interface. And that is the full block ME interface. And into this is going to be your patterns. To set up your patterns, they don't need anything special or fancy. You don't need any particular order for everything to go into. You just got to make sure that you have everything in there and that you have it all in the proper amounts. Now for this, if you look up in JEI and how to make an enriched alloy, it will tell you that to make it, whoops, what did I do? It will tell you that in order to make it, you're going to need some redstone and an iron ingot, and that'll make your enriched alloy. If you're not sure how much redstone to use, because this is showing you a block, it's showing you some compressed, it's showing you a piece of dust, it's very confusing as to what exactly it wants, how much it wants. That's where hovering over this will tell you what it is. So this tells you that it wants 10 units of redstone. And to figure out how much a unit of redstone is, or how much 10 unit of redstone is, you can simply take some dust over to your machine and drop it in here, then hover over right here. This bar right here will tell you where it is. It's down here for the factories. It's over on this side for the standards machine, the non-factory version. The one thing to keep in mind is that if you are testing it in that way, either run a piece of iron through it to complete the recipe, or use this dump button right here to empty out this. If you don't, it'll cause you problems later on. From there, you will then need to have another ME interface, and this will be the panel style interface, and that goes against one side of the block interface. It doesn't matter which side you put it against, but just put one side there. From there, you will then have a different ME network, and it's a good idea to use different colors so they don't interconnect and create weird issues depending on how you have everything configured. You're going to have another ME network, and that goes into this green network right here. From here, I then have storage buses going into the input side and the extra side. And these storage buses do not need to be configured in any way, because your factory will not allow the wrong item to go into the wrong slot. You can't put iron in here, and you can't put redstone dust into here no matter how hard you try. So the storage buses will simply put the correct items into the correct place. Once everything is into the infusing factory or into your factory and you have power going into it, which I have running in through here, through the bottom, through these cryo-stabilized flux duct. Again, you can use whatever method of getting power into your system that you need. I believe configuring this to energy makes a difference if you're using mechanism energy conduits, but for other conduits, it doesn't seem to make any difference. Then you will have on your output side of your factory, you will have an import bus. And again, this import bus does not need to be configured in any way. It will simply pull whatever it sees from here, it will pull out. It can't see any other slot in your factory. So it'll just pull from there, pull it out, send it back up here, and then you need to have a storage bus placed against your interface, and that will put that back into your interface, which will send it back into your ME network. Then, to make sure that everything is powered, you will need to use these quartz fibers and just place them in places where you can connect the two wires together. That's not going to cause any issues, but that will allow power to go through, to allow all of your devices to be powered without having to have another energy acceptor going in here or having crazy cabling going all over the place. Quartz fiber will not send data channels, so you don't have to worry about running overloading your little mini networks here, or overloading your main network, as the case may be. If you are using a single input mechanism device, such as the energized smelter, where only your raw material needs to go into it, this is actually set up basically the same, but a little bit easier. For this one, you just have your interface against one side, against the input, and you can use the block style interface if you need to, or you can use the panel style interface. And then on the output side, you have your import bus. And again, these don't need to be configured in any way. If you have a setup like I have here, we had the import bus going into this purple cable, which then feeds into this ME interface here. And it doesn't make any difference. It's not going to confuse your Applied Energistics system that the items are coming in from a different interface. It doesn't care. As long as it goes into the system, it'll satisfy the crafting requirement. Nuclear craft sets up very similarly to the single input mechanism. I have the alloy furnace set up here because this has two inputs. Nuclear craft machines are smart enough that if two different items are come into this, for example, gold and silver, it will automatically put them one in each. You may run into a situation where you need to configure what side a given item is coming in from, and that's where this button right here comes into play. This works a little differently than how Mechanism does it, where when you activate it, you are going to actually choose which slot you want to configure first, and then what each side does. The one thing to keep in mind and to be very careful about is that if you are on an input slot configuration and you click once, it will change it to output, and that you may think that that means, okay, this is where the output is going to be. What it actually means is that any item placed into that slot can be extracted through that phase. So it's something keep in mind. There might be use cases for it out there. I've never come across them. It mostly just causes problems because if you have an unconfigured import bus like we're using here, and you set this side to output, as soon as the interface puts an item into that input slot, the import bus will just yank it right out. So it won't actually get to do it. It won't finish its process. Generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, you can just leave the configurations alone because by default they are set to allow inputs from every side and outputs from every side. There may be a few cases where, depending on the machine and exactly what you're doing with it, the outputs, you only need one type of output, or you need the outputs to go in different directions. That's where this would come in handy. This one does not allow an import, but it does have this little guy right here. This can be very handy if you only need the primary output and don't need the secondary output. You can actually configure this to simply void any excess material that's put into that. So it'll doing that, it'll allow this to fill up, but then once it fills up, everything else will get voided. If you click it again, it will just start voiding it as soon as anything gets put in there. Generally speaking, though, again, you're probably going to want to leave that on default. But that's the same thing. And then, like I said, we have a very small ME network right here with the import bus going into a storage bus onto your ME interface. And you would use this exact same configuration for Mechanism if you needed a single input for Mechanism. You can also use a very similar method to automate vanilla furnaces. So if you've ever done any automating with vanilla furnaces using hoppers and chests, you'll know that the item to smelt goes into the top and the fuel goes into the sides or the front, sides, front, or back, really. And then the output comes out through the bottom. So again, you can use a very similar system here. For this one, I have it set up where the interface will actually push the items up into this vanilla chest, where it will then be imported and placed into the system. This is an alternate method if you have trouble with things getting stuck or clogged using this setup over here. You can include the vanilla chest in there to act as a buffer. But otherwise, it's exactly the same setup. And again, this only uses one data channel, and that goes into your ME system right here. That's basically it. Automating these machines is very simple and is extremely useful to have, especially for those big builds that you're going to end up with later down the road, where you're going to need just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items of enriched alloys and energetic alloys and so on and so forth. So you can just set up your crafting recipes like that, and everything is good to go. What is also nice is the recipes that build on themselves. So for example, Mechanism's reinforced alloy, which actually needs an enriched alloy in order to work, can be created using this system. You don't need to do each step. You can simply go ahead and start it. And if we come over here, we'll see that this is currently working on making the enriched alloy, the first one. And now it is making the energized alloy. And it's very simple. It's very easy. I would probably recommend not using the buffer chest for this, because this will prevent it from ending up where this is filled up with redstone and this has got enriched alloy, or this is filled up with diamond and this has got iron in it. This will prevent that from happening. Anyway, that's everything that I can think of to tell you about how these machines work and how to automate them using Applied Energistics. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. If you have any suggestions for other machines or mods that I can show you how to automate them using Applied Energistics or using other automation methods, let me know again down in the comments. If this video helped you out at all, hit that like button. Let me know that I'm doing something that's actually helpful to everybody. Share it with your friends. Let everybody else know how useful these tutorials are, to make sure that you catch all of the other upcoming tutorials that I have. And I have a couple of them in the works. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. But until then, have yourselves a wonderful day and happy Minecrafting.